All right. I'm
Okay,
still
Regina
not.
just said she can hear us.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm not sure when we're going to be live on YouTube, but I know that we are live on Facebook and you can even hear us. So, good morning from Beacon. I'm the Reverend Emily Bogus, and I am here with our amazing staff team, the Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner. Wave, Robin. Jermaine Cripe. And back from vacation, newly rested and ready to go, is Misa Iwama, our Director of Music Ministry. I know. Hopefully you're right next to her on everybody else's screen, Robin.
Then I'm just awkwardly pointing.
I know.
Random spots.
Blank space.
Well, we have got an exciting month in July. We are partnered with 3 other UU congregations in New Jersey. This morning, you are going to be watching a service from the UU congregation in Montclair with Reverend Scott Sandler Michael, who is preaching. We cannot wait to be together, and knowing that the fellow congregations are watching as well. Jermaine, what is happening in our children's universe this week?
Well, hopefully they'll be joining us this morning because of the July 4th holiday. We are not having programming. So there's no Camp Kindness Counts, there is no 8th grade owl, and there is no senior youth hangout.
But they can come to service,
Absolutely.
obviously.
And they should come to service because there's some great stories happening in service.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then, Jermaine, the other thing is that we've got stuff going on all week, though, for our kids, right?
Yes, we have our daily touch points. The pre-K through 3rd grade come in at 1 o'clock and check your email. The link should be there for the Zoom. Then at 4:30, our older students, well, actually everyone can come to the 4:31. And then we have our touch points throughout the week. Our parents meet on Thursdays at 9. And then the 8th grade owl class, don't forget, we're meeting on Tuesday and Thursday this week. So check your emails.
Wonderful. Misa, any words from vacation? How does it feel?
It feels great. I would say that when you're a musician, vacation can be awfully like not vacation because it's practicing and listening to music. Absolutely. And making recordings and things. But one thing it really made me realize is that I can't wait until we're allowed to travel again, because change of location is probably the biggest way that things feel different. So I got into a good routine over the past month or so, just in terms of like life-wise, how things work, and things are starting to open up in New York. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, things are really looking a little bit different now.
Yeah. Well, it's so good to have you back. We've missed you.
Thanks. I miss you.
And for the people who are wondering, Dr. Julie Patel is on vacation
open up in New York,
this week.
So
it sounds like we just got sound on YouTube.
Looking a little bit different
now. All right. Sorry, I had to do that. Robin, it is 4th of July weekend. Yeah. Do you have some news for us? I know that lots of people were watching Hamilton over the course of the weekend, but you've also got other things to share with us.
Yeah, so today is 168 years since Frederick Douglass preached in Rochester, New York, the now famous sermon, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." And at the time, I have a quick quote from that sermon to share with you. He said, "At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed. Oh, had I the ability, and could I reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream, for it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder." And so Douglass at the time really pointed to the hypocrisy in a nation that was celebrating with bombast and all manner of joyous eruptions, if you will, freedom, while many of its residents were still not yet free. And so Beacon is a part of 168 faith communities that across this weekend are preaching out against the 3 pandemics: COVID-19, poverty, and systemic racism. To say, even yet, as we celebrate the 4th of July, we acknowledge that truly those ideals that are founded in the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, are not available to all in this country. And to really live up to those ideals, we have a way to go. And so we are preaching, part of preaching a word of prophecy this day, preaching out against those three pandemics and calling us all to both account and to be in unison with these faith communities, rabbis and imams, Christian clergy, as well as Unitarian across the country, and who are part of the Poor People's Campaign as well, who are really saying in one clear voice, we do yet have time to change.
Mm-hmm.
It is yet possible for change to happen. And just a quick note that I would direct folks, we're going to put it in the chat. There's a beautiful, just incredibly moving recording of the descendants of Frederick Douglass reading What to the Slave is the 4th of July. And in that, one of Frederick Douglass's descendants ends in this this quote that I think is really powerful and has been stirring with me. So I'd like to share that quote, and then we're going to light our candle of witness, and then we're going to turn right over to the service. So here is what Isidore Dharma Douglas Skinner, who's 15 and a descendant of Frederick Douglass, says at the end of that video. Somebody once said that pessimism is a tool of white oppression, and I think that's true. We are in many ways slaves to the notion that it will never get better, but I think there is hope. We celebrate Black joy and Black life, and we remember that change is possible.
Amen.
And so this day, our candle of witness, we've been lighting a candle each and every Sunday for a Black resident of this country who was murdered by the state. And this day, we light a candle for George Floyd. George Floyd, whose death really sparked a rebellion of sorts. Talk about the 4th of July, right? And an awakening to liberation that has gone throughout this country. Almost every county in the United States has had some kind of protest, vigil, gathering to speak out for Black liberation and to move us toward the ideals of freedom in the Declaration of Independence, which I think is just astounding and gives me hope. So this day we light this candle for George Perry Floyd Jr. I blew it out.
I'm glad it happens to you too, Robin.
Just a word about George Perry Floyd so that we know we don't only remember him by his death. He was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and grew up in Houston, Texas. The 6'7" gentle giant, as he was called, had been a bodybuilder and a star football player and basketball player in high school. He went on to play college basketball in Florida, joining a club team known as To God Be the Glory. His family, who knew him as Perry Jr., said he had a gift for making people feel welcome. George leaves behind his partner and 3 children, 2 adults, and his 6-year-old daughter, Gianna, who has become the subject of murals with the quote, "My daddy changed the world." So may we, beloved, change the world as today we take on these 3 pandemics and we listen to wisdom from our sister congregation in Montclair.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Allison Miller, and I have the privilege of serving the Morristown Unitarian Fellowship. We are a spiritually alive, radically inclusive, and justice-centered community that gathers to inspire, connect, and serve together in ways that lead to greater healing for ourselves, our neighbors, all beings, and our earth. We are grateful to participate in this collaborative summer, and we affirm that we are in this together.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Emily Bogus.
I'm Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner.
I'm Dr. Tuli Patel.
We are the leadership team
At the Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation, located
In Summit, New Jersey.
Our mission is to be radically inclusive.
to feed the human spirit.
And to heal the world.
We affirm
That we are
In this together.
I am Reverend Scott Samler Michael, he, him, his.
And I'm Reverend Anya Sandler Michael, she, her, hers, and we are senior co-ministers at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation at Montclair. Grounded in faith, we come together to nurture the soul, inspire hope, and bring into being a more just and loving world.
And we affirm that we are all in this together.
Greetings from Lincroft, New Jersey. I am the Reverend Virginia Jaraka Ernst, co-minister at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Monmouth County.
And I am co-minister, the Reverend Craig Rubano. At UUCMC, our mission is to create community, transform ourselves, and transform the world.
And we are in this together.
It's time to light our chalice, a beacon to guide us through these times together. Perhaps you have a chalice or candle at home, anything that you can illumine.
Let us light our collective chalices as we share our chalice lighting affirmation. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land, building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of They then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love.
You are
Like no other breathing, what you can give, no other can give. To the future of our precious children, to the future of the world where we live. Hear the song of peace within you. Hear the song of peace in your heart. Each new beginning shall lead to the harvest. Love will guide us on our way. Love will guide us on our way. Love will guide us on our way.
Stop in the name of the law. So often we hear people talking about the law, or law and order, or don't break the law, or follow the rule of law. But I wonder, where does the law come from? Many cultures have stories about someone special who helped establish the law in their land. Often they're called lawgivers. Some are even called saints. Can you name any lawgivers? I bet you can. Like James Madison, who wrote the U.S. Constitution. Here are some more. Manus from Egypt, Hammurabi from Babylon, Moses from ancient Israel, Solon from Athens, Confucius from China, America's own Sonia Sotomayor, William Blackstone from England, Muhammad, may peace be upon him, Saudi Arabia, Sundiata from Mali in Africa, and Sequoia among the Cherokee. There are so many lawgivers, they make it hard to see anything else. Never mind one another or the truth. Laws don't just come out of nowhere. People write the laws. And sometimes people write weird laws, like no stink bombs in Alabama, pickles must bounce in Connecticut, no fancy bike riding in Illinois. Bizarre. People write weird laws, but sometimes people make laws that are downright mean, immoral, or just plain wrong. Like slavery. Slavery was legal for a long time. Slavery was always wrong, but for some time it was legal. Legal doesn't always mean good or right. If our country is, as some say, a nation of laws, it is wise for us to pay attention to what laws may not measure up to the standards of justice and truth that we know is right in our hearts. So I want you to remember that all of us have the power and the duty to write laws that are fair and equal. Here is the key. We are all the lawgivers, not just all those figures who are on the screen, all of us. And when our democracy is running fairly, we all help decide what laws, what rules should govern our behavior. This includes not just writing good laws for the future, but correcting really bad laws from the past. So I challenge all of you lawgivers to use your moral imaginations and answer, what laws need to be changed? And stop in the name of the law. Just make sure that law is good, just, and fair, and that it protects all people everywhere equally.
We gather in a shared space, a together space, a space that reaches into the electronic devices, the homes, the hearts of 4 New Jersey area congregations. And we hold this space, this shared space, as sacred. Why? Because into this space we bring our lament, our joy, our gratitude, and our remembrance. What do you bring with you today? You are encouraged to share your lament, your joy, your gratitude, your remembrance out loud, hold it silently, or add it to our chat as we light candles. Please continue with me now in this space of prayer and meditation. And may we begin with gratitude. Gratitude for this day that has arisen, not out of our doing, but from nature's becoming. And gratitude for the incredible tenacity of life. Gratitude for the songs of birds and the rhythm of music, for the way that our heart is tended and our spirits sometimes catch fire. Gratitude for the moments that bring balm to our trauma. And perhaps, held by this gratitude, we have cushion enough to lament. Wholly and fully for all that has been lost and all we are losing, for systemic oppression and blatant acts of racism, for the fear that we feel moving through crowds and past a police presence. Lament for the young ones now bearing witness to these same and new terrors. Lament for all of our aching, for the way we bottle up our full selves, hiding our truth with illusion, for all we have lost and all we are losing. And cracking our hearts wide open with lament, perhaps now we can turn to the holy by whichever name we use. God, love, life, being, Allah, Spirit, or Jehovah, Adonai, peace, earth, wonder, or welcome. Turn our cracked hearts open, our broken hearts, to praise and adulation, praise for all that remains and is just now, even now, arriving. Praise for the work and the wisdom, praise for our life and our shared living, praise for the songs that sing themselves from the depth of our being. Praise for the truth that no spin can shatter. Praise for participation and connection. Praise for the way we have woken, the way we are waking. Praise for justice and change in all we are making. Praise for those born in these moments of our praying. Just now, they are coming. Just now, in these moments, awaking. Praise for all that is possible and real. Praise and thanksgiving. Amen. May it be so. May it hold us. Amen.
When you hear the word generosity, I feel like your mind immediately zooms to one person. Mine sure does. My person is Mark, my uncle. He's the reason that right now there is a full, elaborate throne in my living room, and several gongs. He's the reason that my brother's bachelor pad has somewhat worthwhile art. Everyone in my family has benefited from how hard Uncle Mark gives Christmas gifts. With every single bit of his extra cash, with every single bit of his heart. And if you were new at a family Christmas, you might not see the logic behind his gifts. Like, why would a 4-year-old need a modern statue of a camel that was double her size? Why would a young college kid want a literal ball and chain? But the reason that Mark is the best is that his gifts connect deeply with who that person is. His gifts say, I know you. I see you. I love you. I wonder what it would mean to wrap our arms around each other right now, to wrap our hands around our suffering world and say those things. I know you. I see you. I love you. That's where generosity lives. And the world needs your generosity. It needs your witness, and it needs your love, and it needs even more than that. Please join us in whatever way you can for this Sunday's offering. All of your gifts are worthy. All of your gifts are received in love. In 1935, just 8 days after the Reich Citizenship Law, the law on the protection of German blood and German honor, and the Reich Flag Law were formally proclaimed by Adolf Hitler, 45 Nazi lawyers sailed for New York under the auspices of the Association of National Socialist German Jurists. The trip was a reward for the lawyers who had codified the Reich's race-based legal philosophy. The announced purpose of the visit was to, quote, gain special insight into the workings of the American legal and economic life through study and lectures. And the leader of the group was Ludwig Fischer. As the governor of the Warsaw District half a decade later, he would preside over the brutal order of the ghetto. Upon docking, the Germans attended a reception organized by the New York City Bar Association. Everyone in the room would have known about the recent events in Nuremberg, yet the quest by leading Nazi jurists to learn from America's legal and economic systems was warmly welcomed.
Yes, the United States was the direct inspiration for Nazi Germany's race laws, which gave legal excuses for racial violence and genocide. Afterward, the Republic of South Africa fashioned its legal apartheid on America's racist laws. I did not know this as a youngster. In 1976, at age 14, I had red, white, and blue wallpaper that said USA, USA, USA in vertical columns. I even had 4-inch red, white, and blue platform shoes. It seemed to me that our nation had caught the freedom fever. Civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, and more were intersecting during my formative years. I did not yet know the depths of our nation's racism. I had no idea that my country's laws on segregation, Jim Crow, and voter suppression had been models for Nazi Germany. It would only be later when I would read MLK and James Baldwin and learn that all oppressions intersect: race, homophobia, poverty, sexism, police brutality, mass incarceration, that they all feed on one another. I thought in 1976, as the freedom fever still smoldered, heading towards America's 200th birthday, that America was finding its way. And now, 44 years later, we are having the same conversation about the same injustices we had when I was a youngster. And though I'm also weary, I'm angry. Racism in America is systemic, meaning racism is baked into our system of government. As surely as racial hatred lurks in people's hearts, racism lives in America's laws, practices, police procedures, habits, unspoken norms, court decisions, even in statuary and in textbooks. Our hearts intersect with these systems, and when we change those laws and those police procedures and incarceration trends, hearts will follow. And here on Independence Day weekend, we examine the foundations of America's social contract, the covenant that all citizens make with our government. In fact, the most morally hopeful piece of that contract is that all will receive equal protection under the law. Our Constitution is ordained, written in religious language by people, and so we examine the Constitution in worship. The USA is a democratic republic in large part because colonial churches were democratic. They figured if they could vote on matters of the divine, they should certainly be allowed to vote on human and civic issues. A casual glance makes it as easy as 1, 2, 3 to understand racism in America. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution states, representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers. And those representatives will be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service, 3/5 of all other persons. Slavery, subjugation of Native Americans, and indentured servitude are all deemed okay in our Constitution, right at the very top. Now, slaves existed not just in the South, but throughout the nation, New York and New Jersey included. And our African American neighbors and kin are declared in our founding document as only 3/5 of a person. And though they had no rights as slaves, those same slaves were factored into the number of representatives to the U.S. House and counted as electors in the Electoral College. And this created the perverse reality that the states with the most slaves, like Virginia and North Carolina, had greater influence and power over our federal government because of the sheer number of disenfranchised human beings held in chains. And it gave those slave states more votes in Congress and for president. This is a core reality of our Constitution. Racism is easy to see as 1, 2, 3. This flaw in our constitutional design led to the Civil War. And when the Confederacy unconditionally surrendered in 1865, America got to the difficult work of trying to fix our broken Constitution. And once again, those fixes are easy to remember. Amendments 13, 14, 15. 13 abolished slavery. 14, equal protection under the law. 15 gave the right to vote to black men. But in our time, the 14th Amendment is what is key. The 14th Amendment was written and enacted to protect black people from racist violence, from police and other state-sanctioned terrorism, as well as vigilante gangs like the Klan. Sadly, the Supreme Court has often ignored this truth about that amendment. So many decisions have been made that have hindered equal protection over the years. Every decision that refuses to see the evil of imbalanced racial outcomes of our laws, regulations, or public policy, this is part of the legacy of legalized racism and systematic evil that we must uproot. Here is but a short list of decisions that blasphemed the great promise of racial justice. In 1883, the Supreme Court reaffirmed white supremacy in decisions that reestablished plantation discipline, as Supreme Court Justice Bradley put it, overturning the Civil Rights Act of 1875. Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, where the court claimed separate but equal was valid, and that judicial crime was not undone until 1954. In 1989, the Graham decision, our court created out of thin air qualified immunity. And this has allowed police to act violently with no recourse. The court has wrongly ruled that in order to prove racial bias, one must prove malicious racial intent. In other words, you must prove that someone acted with racism and malice in their heart, which is nearly impossible to prove. And the court also ruled that racially biased outcomes of public policy are not enough to end those policies or to bring legal redress. And then, in 2013, the Supreme Court ruled that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was no longer needed to ensure fairness in elections. Outrage upon outrage. Despite the soaring rhetoric of the July 4th holiday, the United States Supreme Court has long enabled white supremacy. No wonder our system does not respond well to calls for racial justice. It's baked into the cake. Our Constitution, however, provides protections for non-white citizens, but our courts continue to ignore them, and this is one definition of systemic racism. The true spirit of America's promise lives in amendments like the 14th Amendment. The least that any citizen should expect is protection, especially from state authorities like police. Indeed, the only America I believe worth defending is one that gives equal protection to all. Denying freedom and protection to any class of human beings is morally and constitutionally wrong. Our moral clarion call has never been clearer. So we find ourselves in this potent historical moment where people have taken to the streets to demand America live up to the promise of its best principles. Equal protection under the law is also a reflection of universalism. Our faith claims about God mirror the 14th Amendment's claims about our nation, that all have dignity and deserve protection and equity. And this is why we gather, because we know this can be done if only the moral courage to do it is demanded of those with the power to make change, and by removing from power those who refuse to dismantle white supremacy. White supremacy must be made a fireable offense in all government employment down to the contractor level, meaning that no white supremacist should receive any government money or contract. These are tough lessons. As Universalists, we hold these truths to be self-evident. There is no good racism. There is no good white supremacy. There is no goodness on the other side of this issue. The choice for our nation is either equal protection for all or the spiritual and civic death brought by white supremacy. So my place in this is complicated. On my mother's side, I'm a distant relative of General Robert E. Lee of the Army of Northern Virginia. Oh, the awful stories I heard growing up. This is a difficult family history for which to atone. As a teenager growing up in a border state like Maryland, my white peers often forced us to take sides about the Confederacy. When I hung posters of both Jimi Hendrix and Angela Davis in my bedroom, my friends and my family knew exactly where I stood. And I learned that most of what we hear about General Lee is mythology. Robert E. Lee remained an avowed white supremacist to his death. Yeah, he regretted the loss of life the war caused, but he never disavowed his embrace of slavery. And I do not find that gentlemanly behavior in the least. There is no goodness there. One curious thing we know is true about Lee: he urged us not to build monuments to the Confederacy, writing, "I think it wiser not to keep open the sores of war, but to follow the examples of those nations who endeavored to obliterate the marks of civil strife, to commit to oblivion the feelings engendered." Yes, but his advice was ignored by slavery's apologists for a century. Symbol of America's slaver empire are everywhere, even in New Jersey. It was just June 19th of this year, 155 years after the South was defeated, that the Confederate battle flag was finally banned by, of all folks, NASCAR. Now, the rules governing war dictate that once a battle flag is surrendered by a vanquished army, that flag is never to be flown again. Post-war Germany, for instance, made it illegal to fly the swastika. So every time states and municipalities have flown the Confederate flag since, they've been acts of state-sponsored terrorism. Germany banned its ugly symbols of traitors and racists. The United States should do the same. The fact that this still must be said is also proof of America's systemic racism. So let us undo this evil too long lingering. This moment will not come again soon. So come, we need your wisdom and muscle. Let us push, tug, even shove this world closer to beloved community. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All people are created equal. Salvation is there for us all, however we define salvation. All people deserve equal protection under the law. The hard-won protections against racial violence granted in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution must be cherished, obeyed as judicial guidance, and brought into being on our streets so it can enter more deeply into our hearts. If we cannot get it right this time, we may need a new Constitution to start again from scratch in order to ordain a truly more perfect union. Amen. May it be so. I invite you to rise as you're comfortable doing so and join us in singing our last song.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down the freedom. Ain't gonna let racism turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let racism turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down to freedom. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down to freedom. Ain't gonna let oppression turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let oppression turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down to freedom. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, keep on fighting, staying enlightened, keep on breathing, keep on believing, keep on loving, and rise above, 'cause I'm not gonna let no hatred turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. I'm not gonna let no hatred turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down to freedom. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down to freedom. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching down to freedom.
So let nobody turn you around as we push, tug, or even shove this nation closer to beloved community, manifesting the promise ordained in our amended Constitution to create what was promised, that all people deserve equal protection under the law. As our Universalist forebears preached, all means all. So, until we meet again,
virtual or otherwise,
you are in our hearts.